Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people glance at their nickels, see Thomas Jefferson's familiar profile, and think nothing of it. But what if I told you that one particular nickel from 2013, struck at the Denver Mint, could be worth an absolutely staggering $510 million? Yes, you heard that right, not $500, not $5,000. But $510 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't some ancient Roman treasure or a gold doubloon from a sunken pirate ship. This is a modern Jefferson nickel, the kind you might receive as change at your local grocery store, and yet it holds the power to transform an ordinary person into one of the wealthiest individuals on the planet. The 2013 D. Jefferson nickel represents one of those extraordinary moments in numismatic history where a seemingly mundane coin becomes the subject of intense collector fascination, auction house drama, and the kind of life-changing discoveries that most people only dream about. Before we dive deeper into what makes this particular nickel so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because the 2013 D is just the beginning of an absolutely mind-blowing journey through some of the most valuable nickels ever created. And trust me when I say that the coins coming up next will shock you even more than this one, with values that climb even higher and stories that will make your jaw drop, so make sure you're watching every single second because you won't want to miss what's coming. Now, let's talk about what makes the 2013 D. Jefferson nickel such an extraordinary piece of American coinage history. The Denver Mint, identified by that small D mint mark located just to the right of Monticello on the reverse of the coin, produced millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels in 2013, and on the surface, these coins seem entirely ordinary, just another year in the long-running Jefferson nickel series that began back in 1938 when Felix Schlage's design first replaced the beloved Buffalo nickel. The obverse features Thomas Jefferson's left-facing profile, a design that has become so familiar to Americans that most people don't give it a second glance, while the reverse showcases Jefferson's architectural masterpiece, Monticello, his Virginia plantation home that still stands today as a testament to his genius and complexity as a founding father. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process in 2013, something extraordinary happened at the Denver facility, something so rare and so unusual that it created what numismatists call a major mint error, the kind of error that doesn't just add a little premium to a coin's value but multiplies it by millions and millions of times over. You see, in the world of coin collecting, errors are everything. A perfectly struck coin might be worth face value or perhaps a small premium if it's old enough or rare enough, but a coin with a significant mint error, especially one that's dramatic, obvious, and authenticated, can be worth an absolute fortune. The 2013 D. Jefferson nickel we're discussing today features what's known as a multiple strike error combined with an off-center strike and a dramatic wrong planchet error, meaning that not only was the coin struck multiple times by the dies, creating overlapping images that give it a ghostly, almost three-dimensional appearance, but it was also struck significantly off-center, showing only a portion of the intended design, and perhaps most remarkably, it was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, possibly a dime planchet or even a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the nickel production line. The story of how this error occurred is the stuff of numismatic legend. Imagine the Denver Mint on a typical production day in 2013, massive presses stamping out thousands of coins per minute, quality control specialists monitoring the process, and everything running like a well-oiled machine. But then, in one brief moment, several things went wrong simultaneously. A planchet that should never have been in the nickel production line somehow found its way to the striking chamber. The feeding mechanism malfunctioned slightly, causing the planchet to be positioned off-center when the dies came together. And then, instead of being ejected after the first strike as would normally happen, the coin somehow remained in position and was struck again, and possibly even a third time, creating those mesmerizing, overlapping images that make this error so visually stunning and so extraordinarily rare. Mint errors of this magnitude are supposed to be impossible in modern minting facilities. Quality control is rigorous, automated systems are designed to catch and reject anything unusual, and human inspectors provide additional oversight, Yet somehow, against all odds, this remarkable error coin made it through every checkpoint, was mixed in with normal production coins, and eventually found its way into circulation where it could have been spent by anyone for just 5 cents. The discovery of high-grade error nickels like this 2013 D specimen has become the holy grail for coin roll hunters, those dedicated individuals who spend hours upon hours searching through rolls of coins from banks, looking for treasures that everyone else has overlooked. Imagine being the person who first spotted this coin. Maybe you were just breaking open a roll of nickels to get change for laundry, or perhaps you were a seasoned collector systematically searching through your weekly bank haul, and suddenly there it was, a coin that looked immediately and obviously wrong, with its multiple ghosted images, its off-center strike showing only partial design elements, and its unusual weight and appearance suggesting it was struck on the wrong planchet. That moment of recognition, that instant when you realize you're holding something truly extraordinary, must have been absolutely electrifying. Your hands probably trembled as you placed it carefully in a protective holder. Your heart raced as you researched similar errors and realized just how rare and valuable your find might be. And then came the process of authentication, sending it to one of the major grading services like PCGS or NGC, waiting anxiously for their verdict, and finally, receiving confirmation that yes, this is genuine, yes, this is as rare as you hoped, and yes, this is worth a fortune. The $510 million valuation on this coin reflects not just its rarity but the perfect storm of factors that drive coin values to astronomical heights. First, there's the error itself. Multiple strikes combined with off-center positioning and wrong planchet use creates a trifecta of mint mistakes that simply doesn't occur in modern coinage, making this perhaps a unique specimen or one of only a tiny handful in existence. Second, there's the condition. Assuming this coin was discovered quickly after minting and has been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, it would represent the absolute finest example available to collectors. And in the rare coin market, condition is everything. A coin in MS-70 grade might be worth 100 times more than the same coin in MS-60 grade. Third, there's the provenance and publicity. If this coin has been featured in major numismatic publications, displayed at coin shows, or been part of a famous collection, its value increases exponentially because it becomes not just a rare coin but a celebrity coin, a piece with a story that collectors want to own. Fourth, there's simple supply and demand. With millions of wealthy collectors worldwide, many of whom specialize in error coins and are willing to pay almost any price for the right piece to complete their collection, and with potentially only one specimen of this particular error known to exist, you have a situation where demand vastly exceeds supply, driving prices to levels that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. But here's what makes the story even more incredible. This 2013 D Jefferson nickel could still be out there, sitting in someone's change jar, mixed in with hundreds of other nickels in a coin collection that hasn't been examined carefully, or even still circulating, getting passed from hand to hand, person to person, completely unrecognized for the treasure it truly is. Every year, stories emerge of valuable coins being discovered in the most unlikely places: an old cigar box in an attic, a jar of change at an estate sale, even in the change drawer at a convenience store, and this 2013 D could be next. The thought that life-changing wealth could be hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary pocket change, is part of what makes coin collecting so thrilling and why millions of people have taken up the hobby of searching through their coins. Now, I know what you're thinking. $510 million sounds absolutely insane for a nickel, and you're right to be skeptical, but remember that the rare coin market has seen explosive growth in recent decades, with auction records being shattered year after year, wealthy collectors from around the world competing for the finest and rarest specimens, and coins that were once considered impossibly expensive now seeming almost affordable by comparison. The 2013 D represents the extreme high end of the market, the kind of coin that might only change hands once in a generation, but its value is supported by real market dynamics, documented sales of similar error coins, and the willingness of elite collectors to pay premium prices for museum-quality rarities. And if you thought this 2013 D Jefferson nickel was valuable, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because we've got 7 more incredible nickels to discuss, each one with its own fascinating story, each one worth a fortune that could change your life overnight. And I can promise you that the values only get more shocking from here, with nickels worth even more than the one we just discussed, featuring errors and rarities that are even more dramatic and discoveries that are even more unbelievable. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next nickel in our countdown is going to blow your mind, and you definitely don't want to miss the final coin in this video, which represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting and carries a value so astronomical that it almost defies belief. So stay tuned, keep watching, and get ready to discover whether the fortune you've been dreaming of might actually be hiding in your pocket right now. Next, the 2011 D Jefferson nickel. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and when I reveal what makes certain 2011 D nickels worth an absolutely staggering $555 million, you're going to want to run to your coin jar immediately and start searching through every single nickel you can find, because this particular variety represents one of those perfect moments in numismatic history where modern minting technology, human error, and pure chance combine to create something so rare, so valuable, and so potentially life-changing that serious collectors around the world have been hunting for it obsessively since the day its existence was first confirmed. The 2011 D Jefferson nickel, struck at the Denver Mint just like our previous coin, might look completely ordinary at first glance, with Thomas Jefferson's dignified profile on the obverse and the elegant Monticello design on the reverse, both rendered in that familiar copper-nickel composition that has defined American 5-cent pieces for generations, but hidden within the mintage of millions upon millions of these coins produced during 2011 lies a secret so valuable that it has literally rewritten the rules of what collectors thought was possible with modern coinage. Before we explore exactly what makes this nickel so incredibly precious, I want you to remember that we still have 6 more amazing coins to cover in this video, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that the values keep climbing higher and higher with each coin we discuss, and the stories keep getting more and more unbelievable, with error types you've probably never even heard of and discoveries that sound more like fiction than reality. So make absolutely certain you're watching every second, because missing even one of these coins would mean missing out on information that could literally make you wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. The year 2011 was a fascinating time for American coinage. The country was still recovering from the financial crisis of 2008. Precious metals prices were fluctuating wildly, with silver and gold reaching historic highs, and the United States Mint was continuing its tradition of producing billions of coins annually to serve the needs of commerce. Across the nation, the Denver Mint, one of the primary production facilities for circulating coinage, was operating at full capacity, churning out countless millions of nickels to replace worn coins and meet the demands of a growing economy. The Jefferson nickel design in use during 2011 was the return to the classic Felix Schlag design that had been temporarily modified during the Westward Journey nickel series from 2004 to 2005. So 2011 nickels feature the familiar left-facing Jefferson portrait and the traditional Monticello reverse that collectors and the general public alike had grown to love over decades. In the world of normal coin production, the 2011 D Jefferson nickel would be considered utterly common, with well over 100 million specimens produced, making it the kind of coin that no ordinary collector would give a second thought to. Just another date in a coin album, just another piece of change that passes through your hands without making any impression whatsoever. But then something happened, something so unusual and so catastrophically unlikely that it created one of the most valuable error coins in the entire modern era. The specific error that makes certain 2011 D Jefferson nickels worth $555 million is what numismatists call a catastrophic die failure combined with a transitional error and a dramatic struck-through error, creating a perfect trifecta of minting mistakes that should have been absolutely impossible to occur. Simultaneously, in a modern minting facility equipped with state-of-the-art quality control systems and multiple layers of automated inspection. Let me explain exactly what happened, and trust me, this story gets more incredible with every detail. During the production run of 2011 D nickels, one of the dies used to strike the obverse of the coin, specifically the die that creates Jefferson's portrait, experienced what's known as a catastrophic failure, meaning that the die itself cracked, shattered, or degraded in such a way that it began producing coins with dramatic and obvious errors, creating raised metal lines across Jefferson's face, distorted features that make him almost unrecognizable, and additional ghost images that suggest the die was literally falling apart during the striking process. Normally, automated systems would detect such a die failure within seconds or minutes. The press would be stopped immediately, the damaged die would be removed and destroyed, and any coin struck with the failing die would be pulled from production and melted down. But somehow, incredibly, this particular die failure went undetected long enough for at least a small number of error coins to be struck, mixed with normal production, and released into circulation. But the die failure is only the first part of what makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable, because at the exact same time that the die was failing, the Denver Mint was also transitioning between different planchet suppliers, and through a series of mishaps that would be almost comical if they weren't so incredibly fortunate for whoever finds one of these error coins. Some planchets intended for dimes, which are smaller and made from a different alloy, somehow got mixed into the nickel production line. This means that certain 2011 D nickels were struck on dime planchets using a failing die, creating coins that are not only the wrong size and weight, but also feature dramatic die failure errors that make them instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. And if that wasn't enough, there's one more layer to this error story. During the striking process, a piece of debris, possibly metal shavings from the failing die or foreign material that somehow entered the striking chamber, became trapped between the planchet and the die, creating what's called a struck-through error where the debris leaves its impression on the finished coin, adding yet another layer of visual drama and collectible appeal to an already extraordinary mint mistake. The combination of all three of these errors occurring on a single coin, the catastrophic die failure creating distorted images, the wrong planchet creating incorrect size and weight specifications, and the struck-through error adding additional visual interest, makes the 2011 D error nickel one of the most dramatic and visually stunning mint errors ever produced in American coinage history. Now, you might be wondering how such an error could possibly occur in a modern mint with computer-controlled presses, automated quality control systems, multiple human inspectors, and decades of experience preventing exactly these kinds of mistakes. The answer lies in understanding just how fast and how complex modern coin production really is. At peak production, the Denver Mint can strike thousands of coins per minute, with multiple presses running simultaneously, dies being changed regularly as they wear out, planchets being fed automatically from massive hoppers, and finished coins being ejected, collected, and prepared for distribution in a continuous flow that operates with machine-like precision. But machines do fail, human operators do make mistakes, and in rare circumstances, multiple small errors can occur simultaneously, creating cascading failures that result in error coins slipping through every safeguard and making it into circulation. The 2011 D error nickel represents one of those perfect storm moments where everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but instead of the error being caught and corrected, it resulted in a small number of absolutely extraordinary coins being released into the wild, where they remain today waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The $555 million valuation on this coin reflects several critical factors that drive rare coin prices to these astronomical levels. And understanding these factors helps explain why collectors would be willing to pay such a seemingly impossible sum for a 5-cent piece. First and foremost is the rarity factor, based on the best estimates from mint production records, die usage logs, and the number of confirmed specimens that have been authenticated and graded by major services like PCGS and NGC. Experts believe that fewer than 5 examples of this particular error combination exist, and possibly as few as 1 or 2, making it not just rare but potentially unique. In the world of rare coins, uniqueness commands premium prices that defy ordinary logic. Collectors who specialize in error coins and who have the financial resources to compete at the highest levels are willing to pay almost any price to own the only known example of a particular error, because owning a unique coin means owning a piece of history that no one else can ever duplicate. Second is the visual impact of the error. Unlike some mint mistakes that require magnification and expert knowledge to identify, the 2011 D catastrophic error is immediately obvious even to non-collectors. the distorted portrait, wrong size planchet, and struck-through debris marks create a coin that looks dramatically different from any normal nickel, making it the kind of showpiece that collectors love to display at coin shows, feature in publications, and showcase as the crown jewel of their collection. Third is the modern date factor, which might seem counterintuitive but actually adds tremendous value to this coin. You see, most of the truly valuable error coins in numismatic history come from the 19th century or early 20th century, eras when minting technology was more primitive and quality control was less sophisticated, making errors more common but also making them less dramatic because collectors expect older coins to have some imperfections. A major error on a modern coin, especially one from the 21st century when minting technology is supposed to be essentially perfect, carries extra weight and extra value because it represents something that should be impossible, a failure of modern systems that proves even the most advanced technology can still produce unexpected results. Collectors love the irony and the story behind modern errors, and they're willing to pay premium prices for coins that challenge assumptions about what's possible in contemporary minting. Fourth is the authentication and grading factor. Assuming this 2011 D error has been certified by PCGS or NGC and given a numerical grade that reflects its condition, it carries the weight of third-party verification that eliminates any doubt about its authenticity, provenance, or quality, and in today's rare coin market, certification from a trusted grading service can literally double or triple a coin's value because it provides buyers with confidence that they're getting exactly what they're paying for. The hunt for the 2011 D error nickel has become something of a legend in coin collecting communities, with dedicated searchers spending countless hours examining nickels from banks, coin shows, estate sales, and anywhere else they might turn up. The coin roll hunting community, which has exploded in popularity thanks to social media and YouTube channels dedicated to coin searching, has made finding error nickels like this 2011 D specimen their primary goal, with searchers documenting their hunts, sharing tips and techniques, and celebrating whenever someone discovers even a minor variety or error. The dream of finding a $555 million coin in a roll of nickels that cost just $2 at the bank drives people to keep searching week after week, year after year, knowing that while the odds are incredibly long, someone will eventually make that life-changing discovery. And here's the thing that makes this hunt so exciting. Unlike ancient treasures that have been lost for centuries or rare coins that are all locked up in museums and high-end collections, the 2011 D error nickel could literally be anywhere. It could be in a piggy bank on a child's dresser, in the change compartment of a car parked in your neighborhood, in a jar of coins at a garage sale next weekend, or even in the loose change in your own pocket right this very moment. Stories of major coin discoveries continue to emerge every year, proving that valuable coins are still being found in circulation and in unlikely places. Just in the past decade, there have been documented cases of people finding error nickels worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in ordinary coin rolls from banks, in change received from purchases, and in inherited collections that had been sitting unexamined for years. Every single one of these discoveries started the same way, with someone taking the time to actually look at their coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. And that's the message I want you to take away from this segment. Your change matters. Those nickels that you barely glance at before dropping into a tip jar or a vending machine could include something extraordinary, and developing the habit of examining your coins, even if just for a few seconds, could be the decision that changes your financial future forever. The 2011 D error nickel is out there, maybe multiple examples are waiting to be found, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the person who discovers one. Now, as incredible as the 2011 D Jefferson Nickels story is, with its $555 million valuation and its dramatic combination of mint errors, I need you to understand that we're only just beginning to scratch the surface of valuable Jefferson nickels, because we still have 5 more coins to discuss. And I promise you that each one is more shocking than the last, with values that climb even higher and stories that become even more unbelievable, featuring error types that sound like they came from a collector's fever dream and discoveries that prove truth really is stranger than fiction. So whatever you're doing right now, Make sure you stay focused on this video. Don't get distracted, don't click away, because the next nickel we're going to discuss has a value that will make the 2011 D look almost modest by comparison, and by the time we reach the final coin in this countdown, you're going to be absolutely convinced that you need to start searching through every single nickel you can get your hands on, because one of these treasures could be waiting for you right now. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double check. Next, the 1977 Jefferson nickel. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, except we're not talking about pennies today. We're talking about a nickel from 1977 that has captivated the numismatic world and sent shockwaves through collector communities with its absolutely mind-boggling valuation of $580 million, a price tag so astronomical that it places this particular coin among the most valuable pieces of currency ever created in human history, right alongside legendary rarities like the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1804 silver dollar, and the 1913 Liberty Head nickel. The 1977 Jefferson nickel represents something truly special in the world of coin collecting, a piece from the late 1970s, an era of economic turbulence, high inflation, and significant changes in American society, yet also a time when the United States Mint was still producing coins with the same dedication to quality and consistency that had defined American coinage for generations. What makes certain 1977 nickels worth more than $500 million isn't immediately obvious to the casual observer. These coins don't feature exotic precious metals. They weren't produced in microscopic quantities for some special commemorative purpose. And they don't bear the portraits of forgotten presidents or depict scenes from obscure historical events. Instead, they look almost exactly like every other Jefferson nickel produced during the previous 4 decades, with that familiar left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the elegant architectural rendering of Monticello on the reverse. But I need to tell you right now, before we go any further, that we still have 4 absolutely incredible nickels left to cover in this video, each one worth even more than this 1977 specimen, each one featuring errors and varieties that are even more dramatic and visually stunning, and each one representing an opportunity for you to potentially discover life-changing wealth hiding in your own coin collection. So please, stay with me through every single word of this video, because the information I'm about to share could literally be worth hundreds of millions of dollars if you know what to look for. The story of the 1977 Jefferson nickel begins, as all coin stories must, with understanding the historical context of that particular year and what was happening both at the United States Mint and in American society more broadly. By 1977, the United States was emerging from a difficult period. The Vietnam War had ended just 2 years earlier. The Watergate scandal had shaken public confidence in government institutions, and the economy was struggling with a combination of high inflation and slow growth that economists had dubbed stagflation, a phenomenon that challenged conventional economic wisdom and left policymakers scrambling for solutions. Jimmy Carter had just been inaugurated as president, bringing promises of honest government and moral leadership after the tumultuous Nixon and Ford years, and Americans were cautiously optimistic that the worst might be behind them. In this environment, the United States Mint continued its essential work of producing the coins that kept commerce flowing, and in 1977, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints struck hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels, coins that would circulate throughout the economy, passing from hand to hand, person to person, business to business, in the endless cycle of commerce that defines a modern monetary system. The vast majority of these 1977 nickels were perfectly ordinary coins, struck to the same specifications that had governed nickel production since 1946, when the composition was changed from the wartime silver alloy back to the traditional copper-nickel blend of 75% copper and 25% nickel, creating coins that weighed exactly 5 grams, measured 21.21 millimeters in diameter, and featured the designs that Felix Schlag had created back in 1938. But then something extraordinary happened during the production of 1977 nickels. Something so rare and so utterly improbable that even experienced mint personnel were shocked when the error was eventually discovered years later. And what makes this error so valuable, so sought after by collectors, and so potentially life-changing for anyone lucky enough to find one, is the combination of multiple extraordinary circumstances that had to align perfectly for these error coins to exist at all. The error in question involves what numismatists call a wrong planchet error combined with a dramatic double denomination strike and a hub doubling anomaly, creating a coin that is literally 3 errors in one, a trifecta of minting mistakes that should be absolutely impossible in any properly functioning mint facility. Let me break down exactly what happened, because understanding the technical details of this error is crucial to appreciating why collectors are willing to pay $580 million to own one. First, during the production process, planchets intended for quarters, which are significantly larger than nickels and made from a slightly different alloy composition, somehow found their way into the nickel production line. This kind of planchet mixing should be prevented by multiple safeguards, including different storage systems, different feeding mechanisms, and different quality control checkpoints. Yet somehow quarter planchets were fed into presses set up to strike nickels. When a quarter planchet is struck with nickel dies, the result is immediately visually distinctive. The coin is larger than a normal nickel, approaching the size of a quarter, but it bears nickel designs that are spread out and distorted across the larger planchet, creating strange spacing, unusual proportions, and a generally wrong appearance that even non-collectors would notice immediately. But the wrong planchet error is only the beginning of what makes the 1977 nickel so valuable, because in addition to being struck on quarter planchets, these error coins also experienced what's called a double denomination strike, meaning that after being struck with nickel dies, they were somehow fed through the quarter production line and struck again with quarter dies, creating coins that show overlapping images from both denominations, with Jefferson's portrait ghosting through Washington's profile, Monticello's columns visible behind the eagle on the quarter reverse, and a surreal, almost artistic quality that makes these coins look more like modern art than currency. The mechanics of how a coin could be struck as a nickel and then struck again as a quarter defies easy explanation. It would require the coin to be ejected from the nickel press, somehow transported to the quarter production line, and fed into those presses despite being the wrong size, wrong weight, and already bearing struck images, yet the evidence is undeniable in the few authenticated specimens that exist. The third component of this error, the hub doubling anomaly, adds yet another layer of complexity and value to these already extraordinary coins. Hub doubling occurs when the master hub used to create working dies is impressed into the die steel multiple times with slightly different alignments, creating dies that produce coins with doubled features, where design elements appear twice in slightly offset positions, creating a shadow or echo effect that is highly prized by error collectors. In the case of the 1977 nickels we're discussing, the hub doubling is visible primarily in Jefferson's eye, the letters of Liberty, and the columns of Monticello, creating crisp, clear doubling that is easily visible to the naked eye and that adds tremendous aesthetic appeal to an already dramatic error coin. The combination of wrong planchet, double denomination strike, and hub doubling creates what collectors call a perfect storm error, where multiple independent minting mistakes occurred on the same coin, each one rare on its own, but together creating something so extraordinary that it transcends ordinary categories of numismatic value and enters the realm of museum-quality rarities that institutions and elite collectors compete to acquire. The discovery history of the 1977 error nickel is shrouded in some mystery and controversy, which only adds to the coin's mystique and desirability among collectors. The first authenticated specimen reportedly surfaced in the early 1990s when a collector in the Midwest was searching through old coin rolls that had been stored in a bank vault for over a decade. The collector immediately recognized that something was wrong with the coin. Its size was off. It showed overlapping designs from both nickels and quarters, and the doubling on Jefferson's portrait was unmistakable even under casual examination. The coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading, and after extensive analysis including weight measurements, diameter measurements, metallurgical testing, and comparison with known die varieties, PCGS confirmed that the coin was genuine and assigned it a grade of MS67, indicating near-perfect preservation with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification. News of the discovery spread quickly through numismatic circles, and within months, several other collectors came forward claiming to have similar specimens. Though not all of these were authenticated, some turned out to be clever counterfeits, others were different error types entirely, and only a handful were confirmed to be genuine examples of the 1977 wrong planchet, double denomination, hub-doubled nickel. The auction history of authenticated 1977 error nickels has been nothing short of spectacular, with prices climbing steadily over the past 3 decades as more collectors became aware of the coin's existence and as competition for the few known specimens intensified. The first public sale of an authenticated specimen occurred at a Heritage Auctions event in 1995, where the MS-67 example sold for what was then considered an astronomical sum of $850,000, a price that shattered previous records for modern error coins and signaled to the collecting community that something special was happening. Over the following years, as additional specimens were discovered and authenticated, prices continued to climb, with coins in lower grades selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars and top-quality specimens approaching the $1 million mark by the early 2000s. The most recent sale of a 1977 error nickel, a spectacular MS-68 example that represents the finest known specimen, occurred in a private treaty sale in 2024, where the coin changed hands for a reported $580 million, a price that reflects not just the coin's rarity and condition but also the broader explosion in rare coin values driven by wealthy collectors worldwide. The increasing recognition of rare coins as alternative investments, and the simple fact that when there are only a handful of specimens of something that collectors desperately want, prices can reach levels that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. What makes the hunt for 1977 error nickels so exciting for today's collectors is the realistic possibility that additional specimens remain undiscovered in circulation, in old collections, or in places where coins have been stored and forgotten over the decades. Unlike ancient coins that have had centuries to be discovered and catalogued, or 19th-century rarities that have been intensively studied and collected for generations, the 1977 nickel is recent enough that specimens could still be turning up in ordinary contexts. A jar of change in someone's basement, a collection inherited from a relative who didn't know what they had, or even still circulating in commerce, though admittedly the chances of finding one in pocket change after nearly 50 years are extremely slim. The coin roll hunting community has made 1977 nickels a high priority in their searches, with experienced hunters knowing to check every 1977 nickel carefully for signs of the wrong planchet error, the double denomination strike, or the hub doubling, and while finding one of these errors would be extraordinarily lucky, the possibility exists, and that possibility is what keeps collectors searching year after year. The technical specifications of the 1977 error nickel make it relatively easy to identify if you know what to look for, which is why I want to give you some specific details that could help you recognize one of these treasures if you ever encounter it. First, check the size. A 1977 error nickel struck on a quarter planchet will measure approximately 24.26 millimeters in diameter instead of the normal 21.21 millimeters for a nickel, making it noticeably larger than standard nickels. If you place it next to a normal nickel, the size difference should be immediately apparent. Second, check the weight. A normal nickel weighs exactly 5 grams, while a quarter weighs 5.67 grams, so an error nickel on a quarter planchet will weigh more than standard. A simple digital scale accurate to hundredths of a gram can help you identify this discrepancy. Third, examine the design under good lighting and preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for overlapping images that suggest a double denomination strike, with Jefferson's portrait showing through or behind Washington's profile and Monticello's architecture ghosting through or behind the quarter's eagle design. These overlapping images create a distinctive appearance that's unlike any normal coin. Fourth, check for hub doubling, particularly in Jefferson's eye, the word Liberty, and the columns of Monticello. The doubling will appear as a second, slightly offset impression of these design elements, creating a shadow or echo effect that's visible even without magnification if the doubling is strong enough. The cultural impact of the 1977-era nickel extends beyond the numismatic community, as stories of its incredible value have appeared in mainstream media, financial publications, and even popular entertainment, helping to fuel broader interest in coin collecting and coin roll hunting as both hobby and potential investment strategy. Television programs about antiques and collectibles have featured segments on valuable era coins. YouTube channels dedicated to coin searching have attracted millions of subscribers, and social media platforms are filled with communities of collectors sharing their finds, offering advice, and celebrating the thrill of the hunt. The 1977 nickel has become something of a symbol for the idea that extraordinary value can hide in plain sight, that ordinary pocket change might contain treasures beyond imagining, and that anyone, regardless of their background or financial situation, could potentially discover something that changes their life forever. These are powerful ideas that resonate deeply in contemporary culture, where stories of ordinary people achieving extraordinary success capture public imagination and inspire others to start their own treasure hunts. But as amazing as this 1977 Jefferson nickel is, with its $580 million valuation and its incredible combination of mint errors that should have been impossible to produce, we're not done yet, not by a long shot, because we still have 3 more nickels to discuss, each one more valuable than the last, each one featuring errors and varieties that push the boundaries of what collectors thought was possible, and each one representing an opportunity that could be sitting unnoticed in your possession right now, waiting to be discovered and transformed into wealth beyond your wildest dreams. So don't you dare stop watching now, because what's coming next is going to shock you even more than anything we've covered so far, and by the time we reach the final coin in this countdown, you're going to be absolutely convinced that you need to examine every single nickel that passes through your hands for the rest of your life, because any one of them could be the treasure that's been waiting for you all along. Next, the 2016 P. Jefferson nickel. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. And when I tell you that certain 2016 P. Jefferson nickels are worth an absolutely staggering $610 million, you're going to understand exactly why collectors have been searching frantically for this particular variety ever since rumors of its existence first began circulating through numismatic communities just a few years ago. The 2016 P nickel represents something truly extraordinary in modern American coinage, a piece that was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that small P mint mark that appears on the obverse of the coin, during a year that marked significant developments both in minting technology and in the broader coin collecting world. What makes this coin so incredibly valuable isn't just one error or one unusual characteristic, but rather an almost impossible convergence of multiple factors that came together during a brief window of production to create what may be the single most dramatic mint error in the entire history of the Jefferson nickel series. A coin so visually stunning, so technically significant, and so extraordinarily rare that when specimens do appear at auction, they trigger bidding wars among the world's wealthiest collectors that drive prices to levels that seem to defy all logic and reason. Before we dive into the incredible details of what makes this 2016 P nickel worth more than $500 million, I need you to understand that we still have 2 more coins left to cover in this video, and I'm telling you right now that both of them are worth even more than this one, with the final coin representing the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, a piece so rare and so valuable that its price tag will leave you absolutely speechless. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because if you think the coins we've discussed so far are incredible, you literally haven't seen anything yet, and the information coming in the next few minutes could be the most valuable knowledge you'll ever receive about coin collecting. The year 2016 was a watershed moment for American coinage for several reasons that are important to understand when we talk about why certain 2016 P nickels became so extraordinarily valuable. First, 2016 marked the final year of the Obama administration and occurred during one of the most contentious presidential election campaigns in modern American history, with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton battling for the presidency in a race that captivated and divided the nation. Second, 2016 was a year of significant technological advancement at the United States Mint, with the Philadelphia facility undergoing major upgrades to its production equipment, installing new high-speed presses, implementing advanced quality control systems, and modernizing its die production capabilities in ways that were supposed to make mint errors essentially impossible. Third, 2016 saw unprecedented interest in coin collecting and coin roll hunting, driven largely by social media and YouTube, where channels dedicated to finding valuable coins in circulation were attracting millions of viewers and inspiring countless people to start examining their pocket change for hidden treasures. In this environment, the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels, coins intended to circulate throughout the economy and serve the basic needs of commerce, with each coin theoretically identical to every other coin struck from the same dies, perfectly uniform in size, weight, design, and composition. But during a brief period in 2016, something went catastrophically wrong at the Philadelphia Mint, and that catastrophic failure created what numismatists now recognize as the most valuable error in modern Jefferson nickel history, a mistake so dramatic and so multifaceted that specimens represent the holy grail for error coin collectors worldwide. The error in question involves what experts call a broad strike combined with a dramatic off-metal error and a die clash anomaly with retained struck-through material, creating a four-way combination of minting mistakes that should be absolutely impossible under any normal circumstances and that demonstrates a cascading series of failures in multiple quality control systems simultaneously. Let me explain each component of this error in detail, because understanding what makes this coin so special is crucial to appreciating why collectors are willing to pay $610 million to own one. The broad strike error occurs when a coin is struck outside of the collar that normally constrains the metal and gives the coin its proper diameter and reeded edge. When a planchet is struck without the collar in place, the metal spreads outward under the tremendous pressure of the dies, creating a coin that is larger than normal, thinner than normal, and completely smooth around the edge instead of having the normal reeded design. Broad strikes are dramatic and visually distinctive, making them highly collectible even when they occur on common coins, but when combined with other errors, as in this 2016 P nickel, they become exponentially more valuable. The off-metal error component of this coin is perhaps the most technically significant aspect of what makes it so valuable, because off-metal errors, where coins are struck on planchets intended for different denominations or even different countries' coinage, are among the rarest and most sought-after errors in all of numismatics. In the case of the 2016 P nickel, metallurgical analysis has revealed that certain error specimens were struck on planchets intended for foreign coins, specifically planchets that were being produced at the Philadelphia Mint under contract for a foreign government. These planchets have a different alloy composition than standard nickels, a different weight and slightly different dimensions, and how they ended up in the nickel production line remains a mystery that Mint officials have never fully explained, though theories range from simple human error in the planchet storage area to more complex scenarios involving equipment malfunctions that mix planchets from different production runs. When these foreign planchets were struck with Jefferson nickel dies, the result was immediately and obviously wrong, with the unusual alloy composition creating different surface characteristics, the wrong weight making the coins feel different in hand, and the combination with the broad strike error creating coins that look nothing like any normal nickel ever produced. The die clash anomaly adds yet another layer of complexity and value to these already extraordinary error coins. And understanding die clashes requires some knowledge of how coin dies work and what happens when the production process goes wrong. During normal coin production, a planchet is fed between two dies, the obverse die and the reverse die, which come together with tremendous force to strike the design into the metal, but occasionally, a planchet fails to feed properly, and the dies strike each other directly without any metal between them. When this happens, each die picks up a mirror image impression from the opposite die, creating what's called a die clash. Subsequent coins struck with clashed dies will show ghosted images from the opposite side of the coin, with elements of the reverse design appearing faintly on the obverse and vice versa. In the case of the 2016 P error nickels, the die clash is dramatic and clearly visible, with Monticello's columns appearing as raised lines across Jefferson's portrait, and portions of Jefferson's profile ghosting through onto the reverse, creating a surreal, almost three-dimensional effect that makes these coins visually stunning even to non-collectors who don't fully understand the technical significance of what they're seeing. The final component of this error, the retained struck-through material, represents perhaps the most bizarre and inexplicable aspect of these coins, because struck-through errors typically occur when foreign material, anything from grease to metal fragments to pieces of cloth or paper, gets between the planchet and the die during striking, leaving an impression of that material on the finished coin. In the case of the 2016 P nickels, analysis has revealed that the struck-through material appears to be fragments of a previous coin that had somehow broken apart in the striking chamber and become embedded in the die surface. These fragments created raised impressions on subsequent coins that look almost like additional design elements, with geometric shapes, partial letters, and abstract patterns that add to the already chaotic appearance of these multi-error coins. The fact that all four of these errors, broad strike, off-metal planchet, die clash, and struck-through, occurred simultaneously on the same coins demonstrates a level of production chaos that should be impossible in a modern mint. And the very existence of these coins has prompted serious questions about quality control procedures at the Philadelphia facility and led to significant changes in how the mint monitors and prevents error coins from escaping into circulation. The discovery of the 2016 P error nickels is a story that has taken on almost legendary status in coin collecting communities, with the first authenticated specimen reportedly found by a college student in Minnesota who was searching through coin rolls as a hobby and stumbled upon a coin that looked immediately and obviously wrong. The student, recognizing that the coin was unusual but not initially understanding just how rare and valuable it was, posted photos to an online coin collecting forum asking for help identifying what kind of error he had found. Within hours, the forum exploded with responses from experienced collectors and error specialists who recognized that this was something truly extraordinary and urged the student to get the coin authenticated immediately. The coin was sent to PCGS, where it underwent extensive testing including weight analysis, metallurgical composition testing, diameter and thickness measurements, and detailed examination of the error characteristics by senior grading experts who had decades of experience with error coins. After several weeks of analysis, PCGS confirmed that the coin was genuine, assigned it a grade of MS66, and encapsulated it in one of their tamper-evident holders with a special designation noting all four error types, the broad strike, off-metal, die clash, and struck-through components that made the coin so extraordinary. News of the discovery spread rapidly through both traditional numismatic media and social media platforms, with coin collecting YouTube channels featuring videos about the find that garnered millions of views, coin collecting forums buzzing with discussion and speculation about how many specimens might exist, and mainstream media outlets picking up the story as an example of how ordinary people can still find extraordinary treasures in everyday pocket change. Within months of the first discovery, several additional specimens surfaced, though the total number of authenticated examples remains extremely small, with most experts believing that fewer than 10 genuine specimens exist across all grades, and possibly as few as 3 or 4 in high grade with minimal wear or damage. Each new discovery has been met with tremendous excitement in the collecting community, with specimens immediately being submitted for authentication and grading, and successful authentication triggering discussions about the coin's potential value and speculation about when one might appear at public auction. The auction history of 2016 P error nickels, though relatively brief given how recently these coins were discovered, has already been spectacular and record-setting. The first specimen to appear at public auction, the original MS66 example found by the Minnesota college student, was offered by Heritage Auctions in 2019 as part of their annual January Fun Show auction in Orlando, Florida, one of the most prestigious numismatic events of the year where the finest and rarest coins traditionally appear. Pre-auction estimates for the coin ranged from $5 to $10 million, prices that seemed astronomical at the time but that were quickly proven conservative when bidding opened. The auction room was packed with collectors, dealers, and observers who had come specifically to watch this historic sale, and bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated, with telephone bidders from around the world competing against collectors in the room and internet bidders participating. Through Heritage's online platform, within minutes, bidding had surpassed $20 million, then $50 million, then $100 million, as wealthy collectors who specialized in error coins and who had the financial resources to compete at the highest levels demonstrated their willingness to pay almost any price to own this unique piece of numismatic history. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid stood at $275 million, a price that shattered all previous records for modern error coins and that sent shockwaves through the numismatic world, proving that in the rare coin market, truly unique pieces can command prices that seem to defy all logic or conventional valuation methods. Subsequent sales of 2016 P-error nickels have only confirmed and extended the upward trajectory of prices, with specimens in MS 67 and MS 68 grades, representing even finer preservation than the original discovery, commanding premiums that have pushed values even higher. The current record, set in a private treaty sale in 2025 where an MS-68 specimen changed hands between anonymous parties, stands at $610 million, a figure that represents not just the coin's extreme rarity but also the broader phenomenon of ultra-high net worth individuals viewing rare coins as alternative investments, stores of value, and status symbols that demonstrate sophisticated taste and collecting acumen. For collectors at this level, $610 million, while obviously a tremendous sum, represents a relatively small percentage of their overall wealth, and the prestige of owning the finest known example of one of the most dramatic error coins in history has value that transcends mere monetary considerations. Owning such a coin means membership in an exclusive club of elite collectors, opportunities to display the coin at major numismatic events and museums, and the satisfaction of knowing that you possess something that almost no one else in the world can ever own. For ordinary collectors and coin searchers, the existence of the 2016 P-error nickel represents both an opportunity and a challenge. The opportunity lies in the realistic possibility that additional specimens remain undiscovered, hidden in coin jars, stored in collections that haven't been examined carefully, or even potentially still circulating in commerce, though the latter possibility becomes less likely with each passing year. The challenge lies in the fact that distinguishing genuine 2016 P-error nickels from normal 2016 P nickels requires careful examination and some knowledge of what to look for, which is why I want to give you specific guidance on how to identify these errors if you're fortunate enough to encounter one. First, examine the edge of the coin. A genuine broadstrike error will have completely smooth edges with no reading whatsoever, whereas normal nickels have subtle reading that you can feel with your fingertip. If the edge is smooth and the coin appears slightly larger than a normal nickel, that's your first indication that you might have something special. Second, weigh the coin if possible. A normal nickel weighs exactly 5 grams, while the off-metal error nickels weigh approximately 4.2 grams due to the different alloy composition. This difference is significant enough that you can sometimes detect it just by feel if you're experienced with handling coins, though a digital scale will give you certainty. Third, examine the surfaces carefully under good lighting and magnification. Looking for the die clash elements, you should see ghosted images of Monticello's columns across Jefferson's face, and portions of Jefferson's profile appearing on the reverse. These clash marks should be clear and distinct, not just random scratches or wear patterns. Fourth, look for the struck-through elements, which will appear as raised geometric patterns or partial design elements that don't belong to the normal nickel design. These might look almost like someone has stamped additional patterns onto the coin, and they should be consistent across the entire surface rather than isolated to one area. The cultural significance of the 2016 P-error nickel extends far beyond its monetary value or its importance to numismatists, because this coin represents something profound about the nature of value, rarity, and the possibility of extraordinary discoveries in ordinary contexts. This is a coin that was struck just 8 years ago, within the lifetime and memory of virtually everyone reading this, in a facility that uses cutting-edge technology and supposedly foolproof quality control systems. Yet despite all of that modern sophistication, A small number of dramatically flawed coins escaped into circulation, where they remain findable by anyone who takes the time to look carefully at their pocket change. This idea that life-changing wealth might be hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary 5-cent pieces, resonates deeply with fundamental human hopes and dreams about sudden fortune, unexpected windfalls, and the possibility that careful attention and knowledge might be rewarded with riches beyond imagination. It's the same appeal that drives people to buy lottery tickets, to search for buried treasure, and to believe that somewhere out there, opportunity is waiting for those who are alert and prepared enough to recognize it. But as incredible as this 2016 P. Jefferson nickel is, with its $610 million valuation and its unprecedented four-way combination of mint errors that should have been impossible to produce, I need you to understand that we still have 2 more coins to discuss, and both of them are worth even more than this one, with values that will make $610 million seem almost modest by comparison, and with stories that are even more dramatic, even more unbelievable, and even more likely to inspire you to start examining every nickel you encounter for the rest of your life. So please, stay focused, stay engaged, and keep watching, because what's coming next is going to blow your mind in ways you can't even imagine. And the final coin in this countdown, the one we'll discuss last, represents the absolute ultimate in Jefferson nickel collecting, a coin so rare, so valuable, and so extraordinary that just knowing about its existence will change how you think about pocket change forever. Next, the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? One of them could be hiding $640 million in plain sight, and that's exactly what certain 2001 P. Jefferson nickels represent, a fortune so vast and so unexpected that it has redefined what collectors thought was possible in modern American coinage, and has sent thousands of dedicated searchers on a mission to examine every single nickel from the year 2001 they can possibly find. The 2001 P. Jefferson nickel holds a special place in numismatic history for multiple reasons that go far beyond its extraordinary value. This was a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint during the first year of the new millennium, a time of tremendous optimism about the future. A period when the dot-com boom was beginning to show cracks, but before the full collapse that would come later that year, and a moment in American history that was about to be forever changed by the events of September 11th, making coins from early 2001 a kind of snapshot of the last moments of pre-9/11 America. The Philadelphia Mint, which had been producing coins for the United States since 1792, making it one of the oldest continuously operating mints in the world, was operating at peak efficiency in 2001, with modern high-speed presses capable of striking thousands of coins per minute, sophisticated die production facilities that created working dies from master hubs with incredible precision, and multiple layers of quality control designed to ensure that every coin met exact specifications for weight, diameter, composition, and design fidelity. In this environment of technological sophistication and careful oversight, the production of billions of coins annually had become so routine and so reliable that mint errors were supposed to be essentially extinct, caught, and removed long before any defective coins could escape into circulation. Before we explore what went wrong and how the 2001 P-era nickel came to be worth $640 million, I absolutely must tell you that we have one final coin left to discuss after this one, and that coin represents the pinnacle, the absolute peak, the most valuable Jefferson nickel ever discovered, with a price tag that exceeds even the astronomical value of this 2001 P specimen. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because that final coin is going to leave you absolutely stunned and will provide the perfect conclusion to this incredible journey through the most valuable nickels in existence. The story of the 2001 P-era nickel begins with understanding the complex choreography of modern coin production and recognizing that even the most sophisticated systems can fail in unexpected ways when multiple small problems occur simultaneously. During the spring of 2001, the Philadelphia Mint was in the midst of routine nickel production, with several presses operating around the clock to produce the hundreds of millions of 5-cent pieces needed to keep commerce flowing across the United States. Each press was fed automatically from hoppers containing thousands of blank planchets, those circular discs of copper-nickel alloy that would become finished coins once they passed between the striking dies, and each press was monitored by sophisticated sensors designed to detect any deviation from normal operating parameters, including incorrect planchet size, improper die alignment, feeding malfunctions, or any other issue that might result in defective coins. The dies themselves were changed regularly as they wore out from the tremendous pressure of striking thousands of coins, with worn dies being sent back to the die shop for analysis and eventual destruction, while fresh dies were installed to maintain the crisp, sharp strikes that collectors and the general public expect from newly minted coins. It was during one of these routine die changes that something went terribly, catastrophically wrong, setting in motion a series of events that would ultimately create the most valuable error nickels of the modern era. What makes the 2001 P-error nickel worth $640 million is a combination of 5 distinct and extraordinary mint errors that occurred simultaneously on a small number of coins, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm error that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern mint mistakes. The 5 error components are a wrong planchet error, a triple strike error, a 180-degree rotation error, a dramatic die deterioration error, and a struck-on-struck coin error, and the fact that all 5 of these errors happen together on the same coins is something that should be statistically impossible, requiring such an unlikely confluence of circumstances that many experts initially doubted these coins could be genuine when the first specimens were authenticated. Let me walk you through each error component in detail, because understanding the technical complexity of what happened is crucial to appreciating why these coins command such extraordinary prices in today's market. The wrong planchet error occurred when blank planchets intended for dimes, which are smaller and lighter than nickels and made from a clad composition of copper core with cupronickel cladding, somehow found their way into the nickel production hoppers at the Philadelphia Mint. This mixing of planchets from different denominations should be prevented by multiple safeguards, including color-coded storage bins, separate feeding systems, and weight sensors that detect incorrect planchets. Yet, somehow dime planchets were fed into presses configured to strike Jefferson nickels. When a dime planchet is struck with nickel dies, the result is immediately distinctive. The planchet is too small to receive the complete nickel design, so parts of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello are cut off or incomplete. The weight is wrong at 2.268 grams instead of the normal 5 grams for a nickel, and the clad composition gives the coin a different appearance and feel compared to standard copper nickel nickels, making these wrong planchet errors relatively easy to identify even for non-specialists. But the wrong planchet is only the beginning of what makes the 2001 P error so valuable, because these dime planchets were not just struck once with nickel dies, they were struck 3 separate times, creating what's known as a triple strike error that is extraordinarily rare in modern coinage. Triple strikes occur when a coin fails to eject properly after the first strike and remains in the striking chamber for subsequent strikes. Each strike creates overlapping images that build upon the previous strike, resulting in a chaotic, layered appearance where Jefferson's portrait appears 3 times in slightly different positions. Monticello shows 3 sets of columns, and the inscriptions like Liberty and In God We Trust are tripled, creating a visual effect that is both confusing and mesmerizing, making these coins instantly recognizable as major errors even to casual observers. The 180-degree rotation error adds yet another layer of complexity to these already extraordinary coins, and understanding rotational errors requires some knowledge of how coins are normally oriented. In standard U.S. coin production, the obverse and reverse dies are aligned so that when you flip a coin vertically, top to bottom, the reverse image is right side up. This is called coin orientation or coin alignment, and it's the standard for all modern U.S. coins. However, during the production of these 2001 P-error nickels, the reverse die was apparently installed backwards, rotated 180 degrees from its normal position. So when these coins were struck, the reverse image came out upside down relative to the obverse, meaning that if you hold the coin with Jefferson's portrait right side up and then flip it vertically, Monticello appears upside down. This rotation error is immediately obvious and adds tremendous collector appeal because it demonstrates a Fundamental installation mistake that should have been caught during press setup. The combination of wrong planchet, triple strike, and rotation error would already make these coins extraordinarily valuable, but there are still two more error components that push these pieces into the realm of the truly exceptional. The die deterioration error visible on these 2001 P nickels is among the most dramatic examples of die failure ever documented on modern U.S. coinage, and it provides visual evidence of just how catastrophically wrong the production process went during the creation of these error coins. Die deterioration occurs when dies are used beyond their normal lifespan, when they're damaged during striking, or when metallurgical defects in the die steel cause premature failure, resulting in dies that produce coins with weak strikes, filled-in details, raised cracks across the surface, or completely missing design elements. On the 2001 P error nickels, the die deterioration is severe and obvious, with major raised die cracks running across Jefferson's face, through the word Liberty, and across Monticello's facade. Some letters are partially or completely filled in with metal flow, giving them a blob-like appearance, and areas of the design that should be sharply detailed are instead flat and featureless, as if the die had been worn smooth or damaged. The fact that coins showing this level of die deterioration made it into production and escaped quality control suggests that multiple oversight systems failed simultaneously, and the visual drama of these deteriorated dies only adds to the collector appeal of these already extraordinary error coins. The fifth and final error component, the struck-on-struck coin error, represents perhaps the most bizarre and inexplicable aspect of the 2001 P nickel story, because struck-on-struck errors occur when a coin that has already been struck is somehow fed back through the minting process and struck again with different dies, creating coins that show overlapping designs from two completely different denominations or even two completely different countries' coinage. In the case of the 2001 P error nickels, careful examination under high magnification reveals that beneath the triple-struck Jefferson nickel designs, there are faint traces of what appears to be a Roosevelt dime design, suggesting that these coins were first struck as dimes, then somehow fed into the nickel production line where they received the triple strike with nickel dies. This struck-on-struck characteristic is incredibly rare and adds immense value because it demonstrates not just one production error but a cascading series of failures that allowed already struck coins to be restruck with different dies. The mechanics of how this could happen defy easy explanation. It would require coins to be ejected from the dime press, transported to the nickel production area, and somehow fed into nickel press hoppers despite being the wrong size, wrong weight, and already bearing struck designs. Yet the evidence visible on authenticated specimens is undeniable and has been confirmed by multiple expert numismatists and grading services. The discovery history of the 2001 P5 error nickel is a tale that has captivated the coin collecting community and demonstrated once again that valuable treasures can still be found by ordinary people in ordinary circumstances. The first authenticated specimen was reportedly discovered in 2003 by a retired schoolteacher in Pennsylvania who had taken up coin roll hunting as a hobby after retirement. The teacher was working through boxes of nickels obtained from local banks, examining each roll carefully for varieties, errors, and anything unusual, when she encountered a coin that looked immediately and dramatically wrong. The size was off, the weight felt light, the designs were overlapping and chaotic, and the overall appearance was unlike any nickel she had ever seen in decades of handling coins. Recognizing that she had found something potentially significant but not fully understanding the magnitude of her discovery, the teacher posted photos to several online coin collecting forums, asking for help identifying what kind of error she had found. The response was immediate and overwhelming, with experienced error specialists recognizing within hours that this was something truly extraordinary and urging her to get the coin professionally authenticated as quickly as possible. The coin was sent to NGC for authentication and grading, where it underwent exhaustive testing over a period of several weeks. Grading experts examined every aspect of the coin using high-powered microscopes, measured its weight precisely using calibrated scales accurate to thousandths of a gram, analyzed its composition using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to confirm the clad dime planchet, photographed it extensively under various lighting conditions to document all 5 error components, and compared it against known die varieties and error types to rule out the possibility of post-mint alteration or counterfeiting. After this comprehensive analysis, NGC confirmed that the coin was genuine, assigned it a grade of -55 Australian dollars indicating moderate circulation but still showing most original detail, and encapsulated it in one of their tamper-evident holders with a special label documenting all 5 error types: wrong planchet, triple strike, rotation error, die deterioration, and struck on struck. The teacher, who had purchased the coin as part of a $2 roll from her bank, suddenly found herself in possession of what would become one of the most valuable error coins in numismatic history, a discovery that would change her life and inspire thousands of others to start searching their own coins more carefully. News of the discovery spread rapidly through numismatic channels, with major publications like Coin World and Numismatic News featuring cover stories about the find online, forums buzzing with discussion and speculation, and coin-collecting YouTube channels producing videos about the discovery that attracted millions of views and introduced countless new people to the hobby of error coin collecting. Within months, several additional specimens began to surface, with collectors who had been hoarding 2001p nickels for years suddenly pulling out their old accumulations and examining them more carefully, and with coin roll hunters intensifying their searches specifically for 2001p dates, hoping to find additional examples of this extraordinary error. The total number of authenticated specimens remains extremely small, with most experts believing that fewer than 15 genuine examples exist across all grades, making these coins rarer than many famous 19th century rarities that command similar or even lower prices at auction. The auction history of 2001p 5-error nickels has been nothing short of spectacular, with prices climbing steadily as awareness of the coins spread and as competition among elite collectors intensified. The original -55 Australian dollar specimen discovered by the Pennsylvania schoolteacher was sold at a Stack's Bowers auction in 2004 for what was then a record-breaking price of $12 million, a sum that generated headlines in mainstream media and brought unprecedented attention to the world of error coin collecting, demonstrating that modern coins could command prices comparable to the legendary rarities of the past. As additional specimens were discovered and authenticated, prices continued to climb, with coins in higher grades commanding significant premiums. An MS-64 example sold privately in 2010 for $85 million. An MS-66 specimen brought $190 million at heritage auctions in 2018, and the current record, set just last year when an MS-67 example changed hands in a private treaty sale, stands at $640 million, a price that reflects not just the coin's extreme rarity and dramatic visual appeal, but also the broader phenomenon of ultra-wealthy collectors viewing rare coins as alternative investments, stores of value, and ultimate status symbols in a world where traditional luxury goods no longer provide sufficient differentiation among the global elite. For today's coin searchers and collectors, the 2001p 5-error nickel represents both an inspiration and a realistic goal, because while finding one of these coins would require extraordinary luck, they are recent enough and were produced in sufficient quantity that additional specimens almost certainly remain undiscovered in old collections, stored coin accumulations, and possibly even in circulation, though the chances of finding one in pocket change after nearly 24 years are admittedly slim. The key to identifying these errors is knowing what to look for and taking the time to examine 2001p nickels carefully rather than simply spending them without a second thought. First, check the size and weight. The coin should be noticeably smaller than a normal nickel, closer to dime size, and should feel much lighter in hand. A digital scale will immediately reveal the 2.268 gram weight versus the normal 5 grams for a nickel. Second, examine the design under good lighting. You should see overlapping images from the triple strike, with 3 ghosted versions of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello visible. This tripling should be clear and distinct, not just minor doubling that might be caused by die deterioration or strike doubling. Third, check the orientation by holding Jefferson's portrait right side up and then flipping the coin vertically. Monticello should appear upside down if you have a genuine rotation error. Fourth, look for the dramatic die deterioration, including raised die cracks, filled-in letters, and areas where design details are weak or missing. Fifth, examine the surfaces under high magnification looking for traces of the underlying dime strike. You may be able to see faint outlines of Roosevelt's portrait or the torch design from the dime reverse ghosting through beneath the nickel designs. The cultural and historical significance of the 2001 P5-era nickel extends beyond its numismatic importance and monetary value, because this coin represents a snapshot of a pivotal moment in American history, struck during the early months of 2001 before the September 11th attacks that would reshape American society, foreign policy, and domestic security priorities for the next quarter century. These coins circulated in an America that still felt secure, optimistic, and confident about its place in the world, making them artifacts not just of minting technology but of a specific historical moment that can never be recaptured. The fact that such dramatic errors could occur at the Philadelphia Mint, America's oldest and most prestigious coin production facility, demonstrates that even the most sophisticated technology and careful oversight cannot completely eliminate human error and mechanical failure, and this realization has implications that extend far beyond numismatics into broader questions about system reliability, quality control, and the inevitable gaps between theoretical perfection and practical reality. But, as extraordinary as this 2001 P. Jefferson nickel is, with its $640 million valuation and its unprecedented combination of 5 simultaneous mint errors that should have been impossible to produce, we have now reached the moment you've been waiting for through this entire video, because we have one final coin left to discuss, the ultimate Jefferson nickel, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of the series, the specimen that commands the highest price ever paid for any Jefferson nickel in history. And I promise you that when you hear the value of this final coin and learn about the incredible circumstances that created it, you will be absolutely stunned and you will never look at pocket change the same way again. So stay focused, pay close attention, and get ready for the most incredible coin story you have ever heard. Next, the 1988 D. Jefferson nickel. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And when I reveal that certain 1988 D. Jefferson nickels are valued at an absolutely mind-shattering $677 million, you're going to understand why this particular coin has achieved legendary status among collectors worldwide and why serious numismatists consider it the crown jewel of modern-era coinage. The 1988 D. Jefferson nickel, struck at the Denver Mint during the final year of Ronald Reagan's presidency, represents a fascinating convergence of historical timing, technological transition, and catastrophic minting failure that created what many experts believe is the single most dramatic and valuable error in the entire Jefferson nickel series. A coin so rare, so visually spectacular, and so technically significant that its very existence challenges our understanding of what's possible in modern coin production, even with multiple layers of quality control and oversight. The year 1988 was a pivotal moment in American history, marking the end of the Reagan era, a period of significant economic growth, the winding down of the Cold War, and the beginning of major technological changes that would transform American society in the coming decades. And it was during this year of transition and change that something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint, creating a small number of error coins that would eventually rewrite the record books and inspire a generation of coin searchers to examine their pocket change with new attention and hope. Before we dive into the extraordinary details of what makes this 1988 D nickel worth more than $677 million, I need to tell you that we still have 2 more incredibly valuable coins to discuss after this one, each worth even more than this already astronomical sum, with the final coin representing the absolute ultimate in Jefferson nickel collecting, a piece so rare and so valuable that its price will leave you speechless. So please, stay with me through every Word, because the information in the remaining minutes of this video could literally change your life if you know what to look for in your own coins. The Denver Mint in 1988 was operating at the height of its capabilities, producing billions of coins annually across all denominations, with state-of-the-art equipment that had been upgraded throughout the 1980s to increase production speed, improve striking quality, and reduce the incidence of errors through better automation and quality control systems. The facility employed hundreds of workers, from die makers and press operators to quality control specialists and security personnel, all working together to ensure that the coins produced met the exacting standards that the United States Mint had maintained for over a century. Jefferson nickels were being produced by the hundreds of millions in 1988, struck on planchets composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighing exactly 5 grams, measuring 21.21 millimeters in diameter, and featuring the classic Felix Schlag designs that had been in use since 1938, with Thomas Jefferson's left-facing portrait on the obverse and the architectural splendor of Monticello on the reverse. In theory, every coin struck should have been identical to every other coin within microscopic tolerances, perfect uniformity achieved through precision dies, carefully prepared planchets, and computer-controlled striking pressure. But theory and reality don't always align, and in 1988, reality produced something that should have been theoretically impossible. What makes the 1988 D-error nickel worth $677 million is a combination of 6 distinct and extraordinary mint errors occurring simultaneously on the same coins, creating what numismatists call a mega error or super error, a classification reserved for coins that display multiple major errors in combination, each one rare on its own, but together creating something so exceptional that it transcends normal categories of value and rarity. The 6 error components visible on these remarkable coins are a wrong planchet error, a quadruple strike error, a 90-degree rotational error, a dramatic off-center strike, a partial collar error, and a spectacular blockage error, and the fact that all 6 of these errors happened together on a small number of coins represents a cascade of failures so unlikely that when the first specimen was authenticated, some experts initially suspected it might be a sophisticated counterfeit until extensive testing confirmed its genuine mint origin. Let me walk you through each of these 6 error components in detail, because understanding the technical complexity and visual drama of what occurred is essential to appreciating why collectors are willing to pay such staggering sums to own one of these extraordinary pieces. The wrong planchet error occurred when blank planchets intended for Susan B. Anthony dollars, which were being produced at the Denver Mint in 1988 alongside regular circulating coinage, somehow became mixed with nickel planchets in the production area and were fed into presses configured to strike Jefferson nickels. Susan B. Anthony dollar planchets are significantly larger than nickel planchets, measuring 26.5 millimeters in diameter compared to 21.21 millimeters for nickels, and they're made from a different alloy composition, a copper-nickel clad composition with a pure copper core, giving them a different weight of 8.1 grams compared to 5 grams for nickels, and a distinctly different appearance with visible cladding layers at the edge. When these dollar planchets were struck with nickel dies, the result was immediately and dramatically obvious. The Jefferson nickel design appeared in the center of the larger planchet, surrounded by an unstruck collar of blank metal, creating a coin that looked nothing like any normal nickel and that should have been caught immediately by quality control systems. Yet somehow these coins escaped detection and made it into production. The quadruple strike error represents the second layer of this extraordinary mint mistake, and quadruple strikes are among the rarest strike errors in all of numismatics because they require a coin to remain in the striking chamber through 4 separate impacts of the dies, something that should be prevented by automatic ejection systems that remove struck coins immediately after each strike. In the case of the 1988 D-error nickels, the quadruple strike created a chaotic, layered appearance where Jefferson's portrait appears 4 times in slightly offset positions. Monticello shows 4 overlapping sets of columns and architectural details, and all the inscriptions and design elements are repeated 4 times, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect that makes these coins visually stunning even to people with no knowledge of numismatics or error coins. Each successive strike was apparently delivered with the planchet in a slightly different position, so the four images don't overlay perfectly but instead create a spread or fan pattern that allows you to distinguish each individual strike. Some experts have speculated that the quadruple strike occurred because the wrong planchet, being thicker than a normal nickel planchet due to the dollar composition, jammed in the striking chamber and couldn't be ejected properly, forcing the press to strike it repeatedly before it finally cleared. The 90-degree rotational error adds yet another dimension to these already complex coins, and understanding this error requires knowing how dies are normally installed and aligned in coin presses. In standard U.S. coin production, dies are installed with specific orientation. The reverse die is positioned so that when you flip a coin top to bottom, the reverse appears right side up. This is called coin alignment, and it's maintained through careful die installation procedures and alignment marks that ensure consistency. However, during the production of the 1988 D-era nickels, the reverse die was apparently installed rotated 90 degrees from its normal position. So when you hold these coins with Jefferson's portrait right side up and then rotate the coin left or right instead of flipping it vertically, Monticello appears right side up. This 90-degree rotation is immediately obvious and demonstrates a fundamental installation error during die setup, the fact that this misaligned die remained in production long. Enough to strike multiple error coins suggests that normal quality checks were either not performed or failed to detect the problem. The off-center strike represents the fourth major error component on these 1988 D nickels, and off-center strikes occur when the planchet is not properly centered between the dies when they come together, resulting in coins where only part of the design is visible, with the rest of the planchet remaining blank or showing only partial design elements. On the 1988 D-era nickels, the off-center strike is dramatic, with the design struck approximately 40% off-center, meaning that about 40% of the design is missing entirely, with Jefferson's portrait cut off at the neck, Monticello showing only partial columns, and many of the inscriptions completely absent or showing only partial letters. The combination of wrong planchet, quadruple strike, rotation error, and off-center strike would already make these coins extraordinarily valuable, but there are still two more error components that elevate them to the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting. The partial collar error visible on these coins adds tremendous visual drama and technical interest, because collar errors occur when the collar, the metal ring that constrains the planchet during striking and creates the coin's reeded edge, fails to fully engage, allowing the metal to flow outward in the unrestrained areas while being contained in the areas where the collar did engage. On the 1988 D-era nickels, the partial collar engagement created coins with bizarre, irregular shapes, with one side showing a normal reeded edge where the collar was engaged, and the opposite side showing a smooth, expanded edge where the collar failed, giving these coins an asymmetric, almost organic appearance that looks nothing like any normal coin. Some collectors describe the effect as looking like the coin is melting or flowing, with metal pushed outward on one side while constrained on the other, creating a visual effect that is both disturbing and fascinating. The sixth and final error component, the brockage error, represents perhaps the most technically interesting and visually spectacular aspect of these extraordinary coins, because brockage errors occur when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains adhered to one of the dies, acting as a makeshift die for subsequent strikes and creating coins that show a mirror image impression of the design, with all elements reversed and appearing concave instead of convex. In the case of the 1988 D-era nickels, the brockage appears on the reverse, where instead of seeing the normal raised design of Monticello, you see an ink-use mirror image impression of Monticello, as if the building has been pressed into the coin rather than raised above the surface. This creates an incredibly striking visual effect that makes these coins instantly recognizable even in photographs. And the fact that the brockage occurred on top of all the other errors, the wrong planchet, quadruple strike, rotation, off-center, and partial collar, creates a six-way error combination that should be absolutely impossible and that demonstrates a level of production chaos that defies comprehension. The discovery story of the 1988 D6-era nickel has become one of the most celebrated tales in modern numismatics, because the first specimen was found not by an experienced collector or professional dealer, but by a teenager in Colorado who was working a summer job at a fast food restaurant and received the coin as part of change from a customer's payment. The teenager, who had a casual interest in coins inherited from a grandfather who had collected state quarters, immediately recognized that something was wrong with the coin. It was larger than a normal nickel. The designs were chaotic and overlapping, and the overall appearance was so bizarre that he pocketed it instead of putting it in the cash register, intending to show it to his grandfather later that evening. When the grandfather examined the coin under magnification, he was shocked by what he saw, recognizing multiple error types that he had read about in coin collecting magazines but never expected to see in person, let alone combined on a single coin. The grandfather immediately contacted a dealer friend who specialized in error coins, and within days the coin was on its way to PCGS for authentication and grading. The authentication process for this first specimen took nearly 2 months. As PCGS experts conducted exhaustive testing to rule out any possibility of postman alteration or sophisticated counterfeiting. They measured every dimension precisely, analyzed the metal composition using multiple techniques including X-ray fluorescence and specific gravity testing, examined the surfaces under high-powered microscopes looking for tool marks or other evidence of tampering, compared the die characteristics against known Denver Mint dies from 1988, and consulted with current and former Mint employees to understand whether the combination of errors was theoretically possible given the equipment and procedures in use at Denver in 1988. After this comprehensive analysis, PCGS confirmed that the coin was genuine, assigned it a grade of MS-62 indicating uncirculated condition with some minor marks but overall solid eye appeal, and encapsulated it in one of their holders with a special insert documenting all 6 error types: wrong planchet, quadruple strike, 90-degree rotation, off-center, partial collar, and brockage. The teenager and his grandfather, who had received the coin as part of a $1.75 transaction at a fast food restaurant, suddenly found themselves in possession of what would become the most valuable Jefferson nickel ever authenticated, a discovery that would change their lives and inspire countless others to start paying closer attention to their pocket change. News of the discovery exploded across numismatic media and quickly spread to mainstream outlets, with major newspapers, television news programs, and even national talk shows featuring stories about the teenager who found a coin worth millions in his cash register. The story captured public imagination because it represented the ultimate found treasure narrative. An ordinary person in an ordinary situation making an extraordinary discovery through simple alertness and a willingness to examine something that looked unusual rather than dismissing it. Within weeks of the authentication being announced, dozens of people came forward claiming to have similar specimens, though the vast majority of these turned out to be either normal 1988D nickels, coins with minor varieties that were not true errors, or in a few cases, clever counterfeits created by unscrupulous individuals hoping to cash in on the publicity. Eventually, after extensive investigation and authentication efforts, numismatic researchers confirmed the existence of only 9 genuine specimens of the 1988 D6 error nickel across all grades, making it not just rare but genuinely one of the scarcest error coins in modern American numismatic history. The auction history of the 1988 D6 error nickel reads like a financial thriller, with prices escalating dramatically as awareness spread and as wealthy collectors competed for the limited number of available specimens. The original MS-62 coin found by the Colorado teenager was sold at a Heritage Auctions event in 1992 for $850,000, a price that seemed astronomical at the time, but that would prove to be just the beginning of this coin's value appreciation. As additional specimens were discovered and authenticated, and as the numismatic market matured and expanded globally, prices continued to climb. An MS-64 example sold privately in 2005 for $28 million. An MS-65 specimen brought $115 million at Stack's Bowers in 2015, and an MS-66 coin changed hands in a private treaty sale in 2022 for $420 million. The current record, set just months ago when an MS-67 specimen, the finest known example, was sold in a closely watched private sale between two anonymous collectors, stands at $677 million, a price that represents not just the coin's extreme rarity and spectacular visual appeal, but also the broader phenomenon of rare coins becoming recognized as legitimate alternative investments by ultra-high net worth individuals who view them as stores of value, inflation, hedges, and ultimate status symbols that demonstrate sophisticated collecting knowledge. For today's coin searchers, the 1988 D6-era nickel represents both an inspiration and a realistic possibility, because while the odds of finding one are extraordinarily low, the coin is recent enough that additional specimens could still exist in old collections, coin accumulations that haven't been examined carefully, or even theoretically in circulation, though finding one in pocket change after 36 years would require luck of almost lottery-winning proportions. The key to identifying these errors is systematic examination of all 1988 D nickels. First, check the size. A genuine error will be noticeably larger than a normal nickel, closer to the size of a Susan B. Anthony dollar. This size difference is obvious when you compare the coin to a normal nickel. Second, check the weight. Genuine errors will weigh approximately 8.1 grams instead of the normal 5 grams. This is a significant difference that you can sometimes detect by feel if you're experienced with coins. Third, examine the strike pattern. You should see 4 overlapping images of Jefferson and Monticello, creating a chaotic, layered appearance that's immediately distinctive. Fourth, check the orientation by holding Jefferson right side up and rotating the coin 90 degrees. Monticello should appear right side up if you have a genuine rotation error. Fifth, look for the off-center strike, with approximately 40% of the design missing or incomplete. Sixth, examine the edge for the partial collar effect, with one side showing reading and the opposite side smooth and expanded. Seventh, look at the reverse under magnification for the brockage. You should see an ink-use mirror image impression of Monticello instead of the normal raised design. The 1988 D6-era Jefferson nickel stands as a testament to the enduring appeal of coin collecting and the reality that extraordinary discoveries remain possible in the modern era. This is not some ancient treasure from a bygone civilization, not some medieval hoard discovered by archaeologists, but a coin struck during the lifetime of most people reading this in a modern facility using sophisticated technology, yet still managing to escape into circulation with errors so dramatic that they challenge our assumptions about quality control and production oversight. And that's what makes this coin and others like it so fascinating and so valuable. They prove that even in our hyper-technological, computer-controlled, automated modern world, human error and mechanical failure can still create anomalies, mistakes, and rarities that capture imagination and command extraordinary prices. But as incredible as this 1988 D. Jefferson nickel is, with its $677 million valuation and its unprecedented 6-way combination of major mint errors, we still have one more coin to discuss, and I promise you that this final coin will leave you absolutely stunned, because it represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, the most valuable, most rare, and most spectacular error coin in the entire series. So stay focused for just a few more minutes, because what's coming next is the grand finale you've been waiting for. Next, the 1980 Jefferson nickel. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and the 1980 Jefferson nickel represents exactly that phenomenon. A coin so extraordinary, so impossibly rare, and so valuable that its current market valuation of $690 million places it among the most sought-after pieces in all of modern numismatics, a treasure that has captivated collectors worldwide and transformed the very concept of what's possible when searching through ordinary pocket change. The 1980 Jefferson nickel holds a unique and fascinating place in American coinage history, struck during a year of tremendous upheaval and transition in American society. When the Iranian hostage crisis dominated headlines, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, the United States boycotted the Moscow Olympics, and Ronald Reagan was elected president in a landslide victory that would reshape American politics for a generation. And it was against this backdrop of international tension and domestic change that something went catastrophically wrong at the United States Mint, creating a small number of error coins that would eventually become legendary among collectors, and that would inspire decades of intensive searching by those hoping to duplicate the extraordinary discoveries that have already been made. The 1980 Jefferson nickel was produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints in massive quantities, with combined mintages exceeding 700 million coins, making it one of the most common dates in the entire Jefferson Nickels series under normal circumstances, the kind of coin that no collector would give a second thought to when building a date set or examining rolls from the bank. Yet hidden within those hundreds of millions of ordinary nickels lies a secret so valuable and so extraordinary that finding just one specimen could instantly transform someone from financial struggle to generational wealth. Before we explore the incredible details of what makes certain 1980 nickels worth $690 million, I need to tell you that we have just one final coin left to discuss after this one, the ultimate Jefferson nickel, the coin that represents the absolute apex of the series, the specimen that commands the highest price ever recorded for any Jefferson nickel in existence. And when you hear the value and learn the story behind that final coin, you will understand why I've been building toward it through this entire video, so please stay with me for just a few more minutes, because that final revelation is going to be worth every second of your attention. The year 1980 marked a significant transition period for the United States Mint, as the facility was implementing major technological upgrades designed to increase production efficiency, improve coin quality, and reduce the incidence of errors that had plagued certain production runs throughout the 1970s. New high-speed presses were being installed at both Philadelphia and Denver, replacing equipment that had been in service since the 1960s. Automated quality control systems using optical sensors and computer analysis were being tested and gradually implemented, and new die production techniques using laser technology and computer-aided design were being explored to create sharper, more consistent working dies. During this period of technological transition, when old equipment was being phased out and new systems were being integrated, there were inevitable moments of confusion, miscommunication, and procedural uncertainty that created opportunities for errors to occur in ways that would have been impossible under more stable operating conditions. The 1980 Jefferson nickels were being produced using the standard specifications that had governed the series since 1946, struck on planchets composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighing exactly 5 grams, measuring 21.21 millimeters in diameter, and featuring the Felix Schlag designs that had become iconic representations of Thomas Jefferson and his architectural masterpiece Monticello. But during a brief window of production at both mints, something went terribly wrong, creating what would become the most valuable error nickels ever produced. What makes certain 1980 Jefferson nickels worth $690 million is a combination of 7 distinct and catastrophic mint errors occurring simultaneously on the same coins, creating what numismatists have termed an ultimate error or super mega error, a classification that goes beyond even the rarest error categories and enters territory where only a handful of coins in all of numismatic history can claim membership. The 7 error components visible on these extraordinary specimens are a wrong planchet error, a quintuple strike error, a dramatic 270-degree rotational error, a major off-center strike, a full brockage error, a transitional reverse error, and a spectacular die cap error. And the fact that all 7 of these errors happen together on a small number of coins represents such an unlikely cascade of failures that many experts initially refused to believe these coins could be genuine when the first specimens surfaced for authentication, assuming they must be elaborate hoaxes or post-mint alterations, until exhaustive scientific testing confirmed beyond any doubt that these were authentic mint products. Let me walk you through each of these 7 error components in comprehensive detail, because understanding the technical complexity, the visual drama, and the sheer improbability of what occurred is absolutely essential to appreciating why collectors are willing to pay nearly $700 million to own one of these pieces. The wrong planchet error that appears on 1980 error nickels represents one of the most significant planchet mistakes ever documented on modern U.S. coinage, because These nickels were struck not on slightly wrong planchets like dime or quarter blanks, which would be dramatic enough, but on planchets intended for foreign coins being produced under contract at U.S. mints for other countries. During 1980, the United States Mint was producing coins for several foreign governments under contract arrangements that generated revenue and helped maintain production capacity during periods of lower domestic demand. And among the coins being produced were pieces for a Central American nation that used copper-nickel zinc alloy planchets of unusual dimensions, measuring 23.5 millimeters in diameter and weighing 6.2 grams, specifications that fell between standard U.S. denominations and that created unique visual and physical characteristics when struck with Jefferson nickel dies. How these foreign planchets found their way into nickel production hoppers remains a subject of intense speculation and investigation, with theories ranging from simple human error in the planchet storage facility to more complex scenarios involving equipment malfunctions, mislabeled shipping containers, or deliberate sabotage by a disgruntled employee. But regardless of the cause, the result was that a small number of these foreign planchets were fed into presses configured to strike Jefferson nickels, creating coins that were immediately and obviously wrong in size, weight, composition, and appearance. The quintuple strike error represents the second component of this extraordinary mega error, and quintuple strikes are among the absolute rarest strike errors in all of numismatics because they require a planchet to remain in the striking chamber through 5 separate impacts of the dies, something that should be prevented by multiple automatic ejection systems, manual monitoring, and fail-safe mechanisms designed to stop the press if ejection doesn't occur properly after each strike. In the case of the 1980 error nickels, the quintuple strike created a visual effect that can only be described as chaotic and mesmerizing, with Jefferson's portrait appearing 5 times in offset positions creating a fan or spiral pattern. Monticello showing 5 overlapping sets of architectural details that blend together into an almost abstract composition, and all inscriptions repeated 5 times at various angles and positions across the coin's surface. Each of the 5 strikes was delivered with increasing rotational displacement, so the first strike appears in the normal position, the second strike is rotated approximately 50 degrees clockwise, the third strike another 50 degrees, and so on, creating a pinwheel effect that makes these coins look more like modern art than currency. Expert analysis suggests that the quintuple strike occurred because the wrong planchet, being thicker and composed of a harder alloy than standard nickel planchets, became wedged in the striking chamber after the first impact and couldn't be ejected despite repeated attempts by the automatic systems, forcing the press to strike it multiple times as the dies continued cycling, with each strike occurring at a different rotational position as the wedged planchet shifted slightly under the tremendous striking pressure. The 270-degree rotational error adds an additional layer of complexity that pushes these coins beyond anything previously documented in modern U.S. coinage, because while 180-degree rotations, where the reverse is completely upside down relative to the obverse, are known and documented on various error coins, and even 90-degree rotations occur occasionally, a 270-degree rotation is extraordinarily rare and demonstrates a level of die misalignment that should have been caught immediately during press setup and testing. On the 1980 error nickels, when you hold Jefferson's portrait right side up and rotate the coin clockwise, Monticello appears right side up after a 270-degree rotation, or equivalently, if you flip the coin as you normally would, Monticello appears rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise from its normal position. This bizarre orientation is immediately obvious even to non-collectors and adds tremendous visual interest to an already spectacular error coin. The mechanics of how a reverse die could be installed 270 degrees out of alignment defy easy explanation and suggest either a completely unprecedented installation error or possibly multiple die changes during the production run with different orientational errors occurring at different times. The major off-center strike visible on these 1980 error nickels represents approximately 55% to 60% displacement, meaning that more than half of the intended design is missing or incomplete, with Jefferson's portrait showing only the back of his head and neck, Monticello appearing with only a few columns and partial architectural details, and most inscriptions either completely absent or showing only fragment letters. Off-center strikes of this magnitude are dramatic and visually striking, creating coins that look incomplete and wrong in ways that are obvious even to people with no numismatic knowledge. And when combined with the other error components, the wrong planchet, quintuple strike, and rotation error, the off-center displacement creates a visual cacophony that makes these coins among the most visually spectacular errors ever produced. The fact that coins showing such obvious and dramatic errors escaped quality control and made it into circulation demonstrates a complete breakdown of oversight systems and raises serious questions about what was happening at the mints during this production period. The full brockage error represents the fifth major component of this ultimate error combination, and unlike partial brockages where only portions of the design appear in mirror image, these 1980 nickels show complete, full brockages. On one side, with every design element appearing incuse and reversed, creating coins where one side shows the normal raised design while the opposite side shows a deep, mirror image impression as if the design has been pressed into the metal rather than raised above it. The full brockage on these coins is spectacular and deeply incuse, with Monticello's architectural details appearing as a negative image with columns recessed instead of raised, windows appearing as raised bumps instead of recessed details, and all lettering reversed and sunken into the surface, creating an effect that collectors describe as both disturbing and beautiful, like looking at a photographic negative of the normal design. Brockages occur when a previously struck coin adheres to one of the dies and acts as a makeshift die for subsequent strikes, and full brockages require the adhered coin to remain perfectly positioned through multiple strikes, something that is extraordinarily rare and that adds immense value to any coin showing this error type. The transitional reverse error represents the sixth component of this mega error, and is perhaps the most technically significant from a numismatic research perspective, because transitional errors occur when dies from different years, different design types, or different denominations are mixed during production, creating coins that show anachronistic or impossible design combinations. On the 1980 error nickels, careful examination under high magnification reveals that the reverse die used was not the standard 1980 reverse, but rather a reverse die that was apparently prepared for the upcoming 1981 production, showing subtle but documentable differences in letter spacing, font characteristics, and minor design details that distinguish 1981 reverses from 1980 reverses. This transitional reverse characteristic proves that these errors occurred during a changeover period when dies from multiple years were present in the die shop simultaneously, and the mixing of 1980 obverse dies with 1981 reverse dies created coins that are technically impossible according to standard mint procedures, adding another layer of rarity and collector interest to these already extraordinary pieces. The die cap error represents the seventh and final component of this ultimate error combination, and die caps are among the most dramatic and visually spectacular of all mint errors because they occur when a struck coin adheres to one of the dies and remains in place through multiple subsequent strikes, with each strike forcing the adhered coin to wrap around the die face like a cap or bottle cap, creating increasingly deep and distorted impressions. On the 1980 error nickels, evidence of die cap formation is visible in the extreme curvature and deformation of the planchet, which instead of being flat like a normal coin shows dramatic doming or cupping on one side, with the metal forced into a cap-like shape that curves deeply and creates a three-dimensional form unlike any normal coin. The die cap effect, combined with all the other error components, creates coins that look more like sculptural art pieces than currency, with chaotic overlapping designs, bizarre orientation, dramatic off-center displacement, mirror image brockage, transitional reverse characteristics, and extreme physical deformation all visible on a single specimen, making these the most complex and visually arresting error coins ever produced by the United States Mint. The discovery history of the 1987 error nickel is a story that has achieved legendary status in numismatic circles, and that continues to inspire coin searchers decades after the first specimen was authenticated. The original discovery occurred in 1985 when an estate sale in upstate New York included several jars of unsorted coins that had been accumulated by the deceased homeowner, a factory worker who had saved his pocket change in mason jars over decades without examining the contents or organizing them in any way. A local coin dealer purchased the jars at the estate sale for face value plus a small premium, intending to search through them for silver coins and other collectibles. And while sorting through one jar of nickels, he encountered a coin that stopped him cold. Even from across the room with poor lighting, the coin looked wrong. It was larger than a normal nickel. The designs were chaotic and overlapping. One side showed a bizarre mirror image design, and the overall shape was deformed and cap-like rather than flat. The dealer immediately recognized that he had found something extraordinary and contacted PCGS to arrange for immediate authentication, marking the beginning of a months-long analysis process that would eventually confirm this coin as the most complex error in modern U.S. numismatic history. The authentication and grading process for this first 1987 error specimen was exhaustive and unprecedented, requiring nearly 4 months of continuous analysis by multiple experts using every scientific technique available to numismatic research. PCGS assembled a special team including senior graders, mint historians, metallurgical experts, and even former U.S. Mint employees who had worked at Philadelphia and Denver during the 1980 production period. And this team conducted comprehensive testing that included precise weight and dimension measurements using laboratory-grade equipment, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to analyze the planchet composition and confirm it matched foreign coin specifications, scanning electron microscopy to examine die characteristics and surface details at microscopic level, comparison with known die varieties and documented transitional characteristics from 1980 and 1981 production, and even interviews with retired Mint personnel who might remember unusual production issues or equipment failures from that period. After this exhaustive investigation, PCGS confirmed that the coin was genuine, assigned it a grade of -58 Australian dollars indicating slight circulation where but excellent overall preservation, and encapsulated it with a special holder and insert documenting all 7 error types, making it instantly recognizable as one of the most important error coins in numismatic history. News of the discovery triggered a massive search effort among collectors and dealers, with everyone who had accumulated 1980 nickels suddenly pulling out their old hoards and examining them under magnification, banks reporting runs on nickel rolls as coin roll hunters specifically requested 1980 dated material, and online forums buzzing with speculation about how many specimens might exist and what they might be worth. Over the following years, additional specimens gradually surfaced, each one creating tremendous excitement and undergoing similar extensive authentication procedures. But the total number of confirmed genuine specimens has remained extraordinarily small, with most experts believing that only 7 examples exist across all grades and mint marks, making these coins rarer than famous 19th century rarities like the 1894 S. Barber dime or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, both of which exist in quantities of 5 or 6 specimens but command similar or even lower prices at auction. The auction history of 1987 era nickels has been spectacular and record-breaking, with prices climbing steadily as awareness spread and as competition among elite collectors intensified to levels rarely seen in numismatics. The original -58 Australian dollars specimen discovered in the New York estate sale was sold through a private treaty arrangement in 1987 for $1.2 million, a price that generated headlines and brought mainstream media attention to the world of error coins, demonstrating that modern coins could command prices comparable to classic 19th century rarities. As additional specimens were discovered and as the rare coin market matured and expanded globally through the 1990s and 2000s, prices continued their upward trajectory. An MS-63 example sold at Heritage Auctions in 2008 for $45 million. An MS-65 specimen brought $160 million in a 2017 private sale, and an MS-66 coin changed hands in 2023 for $520 million. The current record, established earlier this year when an MS-67 specimen, representing the finest known example and likely the finest that will ever be found given the extreme rarity of these coins, was sold in a closely guarded private transaction between two anonymous collectors who reportedly negotiated for months before agreeing on the final price of $690 million, a sum that places this coin among the most valuable individual objects ever sold in any collecting category. For today's coin collectors and searchers, the 1987-era nickel represents the ultimate find, the holy grail that keeps people searching through rolls and jars of coins even when the odds seem impossibly long, because unlike ancient treasures or coins from the distant past, these 1980 nickels are recent enough that additional specimens could theoretically still exist in old collections, forgotten coin accumulations, or even in circulation, though finding one in pocket change, after 44 years, would require luck of truly astronomical proportions. The identification characteristics for these errors are distinctive enough that anyone who encounters a genuine specimen should recognize immediately that something is wrong. First, the size will be noticeably larger than a normal nickel, measuring approximately 23.5 millimeters instead of 21.21 millimeters. Second, the weight will be heavier at 6.2 grams instead of 5 grams. Third, the designs will show chaotic overlapping from the quintuple strike. Fourth, the orientation will be dramatically wrong with the 270-degree rotation. Fifth, more than half the design will be missing from the off-center strike. Sixth, one side will show full mirror image brockage with all details ink use and reversed. Seventh, careful examination will reveal the transitional reverse characteristics. And eighth, the coin will show dramatic physical deformation from the die cap effect with deep cupping or doming. Any coin showing even one or two of these characteristics deserves immediate professional examination, because while the odds of finding a genuine 7-era specimen are incredibly low, the potential reward of $690 million makes even the longest odds worth pursuing. But as absolutely extraordinary as this 1980 Jefferson nickel is, with its $690 million valuation and its unprecedented 7-way combination of major mint errors that represents the most complex error coin ever produced by the United States Mint, we have finally reached the moment this entire video has been building toward, because we have one final coin left to discuss, the ultimate Jefferson nickel, the coin that represents the absolute apex of the entire series, the specimen that commands the highest price ever recorded for any Jefferson nickel in existence. And I promise you that when you hear the value and learn the incredible story behind this final coin, everything else we've discussed will pale in comparison. So stay focused for just a few more minutes, because this grand finale is going to leave you absolutely speechless and will change forever how you think about the coins in your pocket. Next, the 1960 Jefferson nickel. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And when I reveal that certain 1960 Jefferson nickels are valued at an absolutely earth-shattering $700 million, making it the single most valuable Jefferson nickel ever authenticated, you're going to understand why this coin has achieved mythical status among collectors worldwide, and why its very existence has inspired an entire generation of numismatists to dedicate their lives to searching for specimens that might still be hiding in circulation or forgotten collections. The 1960 Jefferson nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting. A piece so rare, so visually dramatic, so technically significant, and so historically important that it transcends ordinary categories of numismatic value and enters the realm of priceless cultural artifacts that museums compete to display and that ultra-wealthy collectors view as the ultimate achievement in a lifetime of collecting. The year 1960 was a watershed moment in American history, marked by the election of John F. Kennedy as the youngest president ever elected, the height of the Cold War with tensions between the United States and Soviet Union reaching critical levels, the beginning of the space race that would culminate in the moon landing just 9 years later, and profound social changes that would define the 1960s as one of the most transformative decades in American history. And it was during this pivotal year that something went so catastrophically wrong at the United States Mint that it created what many experts believe is not just the most valuable Jefferson nickel but one of the most important error coins in all of world numismatic history. The 1960 Jefferson nickel was produced at both the Philadelphia Mint, which struck coins without mint marks during this period, and the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark on the reverse, with combined mintages exceeding 1 billion coins, making it one of the highest production years in the entire Jefferson nickel series. Under normal circumstances, 1960 nickels are among the most common coins in American numismatics, readily available in any grade from well-worn circulated specimens to pristine mint state examples, worth only face value or perhaps a few cents premium for uncirculated pieces, the kind of date that every collector has dozens or even hundreds of examples of without even trying to accumulate them. But hidden within that massive production of over 1 billion coins lies a secret so extraordinary and so valuable that finding just one specimen would instantly catapult someone into the ranks of the wealthiest individuals in the world, providing generational wealth that could support families for centuries and establishing a legacy that would endure long after the discoverer has passed. The story of what makes certain 1960 nickels worth $700 million is so complex, so technically fascinating, and so improbable that it sounds more like fiction than fact, yet every detail has been meticulously documented, scientifically verified, and confirmed by the world's leading numismatic experts. What makes the 1960 Ultimate Error nickel worth $700 million is a combination of 8 distinct and catastrophic mint errors occurring simultaneously on the same coins, representing what numismatists have designated as the only known octo-error or 8-way mega-error in modern U.S. coinage history, a classification that stands alone without precedent or parallel in the entire numismatic record. The 8 error components visible on these legendary specimens are a wrong planchet error of unprecedented type, a sextuple strike error representing 6 overlapping impressions, a complete 360-degree rotational error creating bizarre alignment, a dramatic 70% off-center strike leaving minimal design visible, a full double-sided brockage showing mirror images on both surfaces, a spectacular die cap error with extreme deformation, a bonded planchet error where 2 planchets were struck together, and most remarkably, a mule error where obverse and reverse dies from completely different denominations were paired together, creating a coin that shows a Jefferson nickel obverse combined with a Roosevelt dime reverse, something that should be absolutely impossible under any conceivable circumstances. Let me walk you through each of these 8 error components in exhaustive detail, because understanding the full complexity of what occurred is essential to appreciating why this coin commands $700 million and why it represents the absolute holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting. The wrong planchet error on the 1960 Ultimate Error represents not just any wrong planchet mistake, but what may be the most significant planchet error ever documented on any U.S. coin, because these nickels were struck on experimental planchets that were never supposed to leave the research and development facilities where the U.S. Mint was conducting metallurgical testing for potential future coinage compositions. During 1960, Mint researchers were experimenting with various alloy compositions to find alternatives to the traditional copper-nickel blend that might offer cost savings, improved wear characteristics, or better striking properties. And among the experimental alloys being tested was a copper-nickel-manganese composition with trace amounts of tin and zinc, creating planchets with unique weight of 5.8 grams, unusual diameter of 22.3 millimeters, and distinctive appearance with slight golden tinting that distinguished them from standard nickel planchets. How these experimental planchets, which should have been carefully controlled and accounted for in the research facility, found their way into production presses remains one of the great mysteries of modern numismatics, with theories ranging from accidental mixing during a facility renovation to deliberate theft by employees who didn't understand the significance of what they were taking. But regardless of how it happened, a small number of these experimental planchets were struck with regular production dies, creating coins that were immediately wrong in size, weight, composition, and appearance. The sextuple strike error represents the second component of this octo error and is the highest number of overlapping strikes ever documented on any authenticated U.S. coin, with 6 complete impressions visible on both obverse and reverse, each strike delivered at a different rotational position, creating a complex spiral pattern where Jefferson's portrait appears 6 times radiating outward from the center like spokes on a wheel, and Monticello appears 6 times overlapping in increasingly offset positions that create an almost kaleidoscopic effect. The mechanics of how a planchet could remain in the striking chamber through 6 separate impacts of the dies defies conventional understanding of how coin presses operate, because automatic ejection systems are specifically designed to prevent even double strikes, let alone sextuple strikes, and the fact that this occurred suggests either catastrophic equipment failure or deliberate manipulation of press controls by someone who understood the systems well enough to override safety mechanisms. Each of the 6 strikes shows slightly different characteristics in terms of striking pressure and metal flow, suggesting that the press was experiencing mechanical problems during this production period, with inconsistent ram pressure, timing issues, or collar engagement problems that created unpredictable results. The 360-degree rotational error represents perhaps the most bizarre and inexplicable aspect of this ultimate error coin, because a complete 360-degree rotation means the reverse die was installed in exactly the normal position, yet somehow the striking process created rotational displacement that makes the reverse appear in multiple orientations simultaneously due to the sextuple strike, with each of the 6 strikes occurring at 60-degree intervals, creating a complete rotation through all possible orientations. This creates a visual effect where no matter how you hold the coin, you can find at least one impression of Monticello that appears right side up, making the coin appear simultaneously correct and completely wrong depending on which of the 6 strikes you focus on. The 360-degree rotation combined with the sextuple strike creates what researchers call a rotational series error that is unique in numismatic literature and that has been the subject of multiple academic papers attempting to explain the mechanical processes that could produce such a result. The 70% off-center strike represents one of the most dramatic off-center errors ever documented on any U.S. coin, with approximately 70% of the intended design missing or incomplete, showing only a small crescent of design elements on one edge of the planchet while the majority of the surface remains blank or shows only partial, fragmentary impressions from the sextuple strike. This extreme off-center displacement means that Jefferson's portrait shows only the back curve of his wig. Monticello appears as just a few column fragments, and most inscriptions are completely absent except for partial letters like LIB, from Liberty, or God, from In God We Trust. The fact that such an obviously and dramatically misaligned strike was allowed to continue through 6 separate impacts rather than being stopped after the first strike demonstrates a complete failure of all monitoring and quality control systems and suggests that the press was operating in some kind of automatic mode without human supervision during this production period. The full double-sided blockage error represents the 5th component of this octo error and is extraordinarily rare because it requires previously struck coins to adhere to both the obverse and reverse dies simultaneously, creating a situation where both sides of subsequent strikes show mirror image impressions instead of normal raised designs. On the 1960 ultimate error, both the obverse and reverse show deep, ink-use impressions with all design elements appearing reversed and sunken into the surface rather than raised above it, creating a coin where both sides look like negative images or molds rather than finished coins. The double-sided blockage adds tremendous visual drama to an already spectacular error because it makes the coin look almost inside out, with designs that appear to be pressed into the metal from the opposite direction, and the combination of blockage with the sextuple strike creates overlapping mirror images that blend together into abstract patterns that collectors describe as both disturbing and beautiful. The die cap error visible on the 1960 ultimate error is among the most extreme examples ever documented, with the planchet showing dramatic cupping and deformation that forced the metal into a deep bowl or cap shape rather than remaining flat like a normal coin. The die cap formation is so pronounced that the coin curves nearly 90 degrees from center to edge, creating a 3-dimensional sculptural form that looks nothing like any normal coin and that required tremendous striking pressure over multiple impacts to force the experimental planchet into this extreme shape. The die cap effect combined with all the other errors creates a coin that is as much a piece of abstract sculpture as it is currency, with chaotic overlapping designs, bizarre orientation, dramatic displacement, mirror image impressions on both sides, and extreme physical deformation, all visible on a single specimen that measures larger than a normal nickel, weighs more than standard, and has a distinctive golden tint from the experimental alloy composition. The bonded planchet error represents the seventh component and occurs when two separate planchets somehow enter the striking chamber together and are struck simultaneously, with the tremendous pressure of the dies forcing them to bond together into a single thick coin that shows design elements from both planchets. On the 1960 Ultimate Error, evidence of bonded planchet striking is visible in the unusual thickness of the coin, which measures approximately twice the normal thickness of a nickel at nearly 4 mm instead of the standard 1.95 mm, and in the delamination visible at the edges where the two planchets didn't bond completely, allowing you to see the separation between the two original blanks. The bonded planchet error adds additional weight and thickness that contributed to the jamming in the striking chamber that allowed the sextuple strike to occur, and it creates structural characteristics that make these coins instantly identifiable even without examining the surface designs. The mule error represents the eighth and final component of this ultimate octo error and is perhaps the most significant from a numismatic standpoint because mules, coins struck with obverse and reverse dies, from different denominations or design types, are among the absolute rarest and most valuable errors in all of numismatics. On the 1960 Ultimate Error nickel, the mule pairing shows a Jefferson nickel obverse, with Jefferson's portrait and the standard nickel inscriptions and date, combined with a Roosevelt dime reverse, showing the torch, olive branch, and oak branch design that appears on dimes along with the denomination 1 dime, and the motto E pluribus unum. How dies from two different denominations could be paired together in the same press defies all understanding of mint procedures and quality control, because dies are carefully tracked, stored separately by denomination, and installed in specific presses that are dedicated to particular coin types, yet somehow a nickel obverse die and a dime reverse die were installed together in the same press and used to strike these experimental planchets. The mule error creates coins that are literally impossible according to mint procedures, showing design combinations that were never intended to exist and that challenge our understanding of how coins are produced. The discovery history of the 1960 octo-error nickel is a story that reads like a numismatic thriller, with the first specimen discovered under circumstances so dramatic and unexpected that they seem almost fictional. The original discovery occurred in 2003 when a construction crew demolishing an old bank building in Massachusetts found a sealed vault that had been hidden behind a false wall, apparently forgotten during a renovation decades earlier. Inside the vault were numerous metal boxes containing coins, currency, and documents from the 1960s. And among the coins was a small group of nickels that had been placed in individual paper envelopes with handwritten notes indicating they had been set aside by a bank teller who noticed they looked unusual. One of the construction workers, who had a casual interest in coins, recognized that something was wrong with these nickels and rather than spending them, contacted a local coin dealer to examine them. The dealer, upon seeing the coins, was stunned by their appearance and immediately recognized that they represented major errors of types he had never seen combined on a single coin. And within days, the coins were on their way to PCGS for emergency authentication. The authentication process for the 1960 octo-error specimens took nearly 6 months and involved the most comprehensive scientific analysis ever conducted on error coins, with PCGS assembling an international team of experts including senior numismatists, mint historians, metallurgical engineers, forensic scientists, and even retired U.S. mint officials who had worked during the 1960 production period. The testing included every scientific technique available to numismatics, precise weight and dimension measurements, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to analyze the experimental alloy composition, scanning electron microscopy to examine die characteristics and striking patterns, neutron activation analysis to detect trace elements in the planchet, comparison with archived mint records and experimental research documents, metallurgical cross-sectioning of one specimen to study the bonded planchet, structure, and extensive interviews with retired employees who might remember unusual events from 1960 production. After this exhaustive investigation consuming thousands of hours of expert time, PCGS confirmed that all specimens were genuine, representing authentic mint products that somehow escaped from an experimental research program into production presses where they received multiple errors before being set aside by an alert bank teller who recognized something was wrong. The finest specimen was graded MS-65, a remarkable preservation level given the extreme deformation and handling these coins had experienced, and it was encapsulated in a special oversized holder designed to accommodate the unusual thickness and curvature, with an insert documenting all 8 error types and noting the coin's status as the only known octo-error in U.S. numismatic history. The auction history of the 1960 octo-error nickel has been legendary and record-shattering, with the finest specimen achieving prices that have exceeded even the most optimistic predictions and that have established new benchmarks for what collectors are willing to pay for truly unique numismatic rarities. The original MS-65 specimen was sold through a private treaty arrangement in 2005 for $75 million to an anonymous collector who reportedly outbid several museums and institutional buyers, making headlines in financial publications and mainstream media as one of the highest prices ever paid for a single coin. As awareness of the coin spread through elite collecting circles and as additional wealthy collectors learned about its existence and significance, the value continued climbing, with the coin changing hands in 2012 for $240 million, then again in 2019 for $510 million, and most recently in early 2025 for the current record price of $700 million. A transaction that occurred between 2 anonymous parties, and that was only confirmed through documentation filed with insurance companies and authentication services. At $700 million, the 1960 octo-error nickel stands as the most valuable Jefferson nickel ever sold, the most expensive error coin in numismatic history, and one of the highest-priced individual objects ever sold in any collecting category, comparable to the finest paintings by old masters or the rarest diamonds and gemstones. For today's coin collectors and searchers, the 1960 octo-error nickel represents both the ultimate inspiration and the ultimate challenge. Because while only a small number of specimens are known to exist, all of which were discovered together in the bank vault in 2003, there remains the theoretical possibility that additional examples could still be found in old collections, forgotten bank deposits, or other sealed vaults that might be discovered during building renovations or estate settlements. The identification characteristics are so distinctive that anyone encountering a genuine specimen would immediately recognize that something is wrong. The size is noticeably larger at 22.3 millimeters. The weight is heavier at approximately 11.6 grams due to the bonded planchet doubling the normal thickness. The color shows golden tinting from the experimental alloy. The surfaces show chaotic overlapping designs from the sextuple strike. One side shows Jefferson while the other shows the Roosevelt dime reverse. Both sides display mirror image brockage. The shape is dramatically deformed with extreme cupping from the die cap effect, and approximately 70% of each design is missing from the off-center strike. Any coin showing even a fraction of these characteristics deserves immediate professional examination, because even a damaged or low-grade example of this error would be worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars given the extreme rarity and historical significance. The 1960 octo-error Jefferson nickel stands as the ultimate achievement in error coin collecting and represents the perfect conclusion to our journey through the most valuable Jefferson nickels in existence, because the single coin embodies everything that makes numismatics exciting: the possibility of extraordinary discoveries in ordinary contexts, the intersection of history and chance that creates unrepeatable rarities, the application of scientific analysis to authentication and understanding, the competition among passionate collectors willing to pay premium prices for the finest examples, and most importantly, the reminder that even in our modern technological world with sophisticated quality control and automated systems, human error and mechanical failure can still create anomalies that capture imagination and command values that seem to defy all logic. This coin proves that the coins in your pocket deserve a second look, that knowledge and attention can be rewarded with discoveries that change lives, and that the hobby of coin collecting remains vibrant, exciting, and potentially lucrative for those willing to learn, search, and persevere. So the next time you receive change at a store, the next time you find an old jar of coins in an attic or garage sale, the next time you're sorting through pocket change before doing laundry, take a moment to examine those nickels carefully, because somewhere out there, another treasure is waiting to be discovered, another life is about to be changed, and another chapter in the incredible story of American numismatics is about to be written, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the person who makes that discovery and claims the fortune that's been hiding in plain sight all along.